He pinned me against the frosted glass wall of his penthouse elevator, 38 floors above the city, snow swirling like 1,000 silent accusations outside. The doors had barely closed when Alexander Cold's hand slammed the emergency stop. The cabin jolted. My heart slammed harder. "You have 10 seconds to tell me why you've been running from me for 7 weeks, he said, voice low, lethal, trembling. I couldn't breathe. His eyes, those glacier blue eyes everyone called unfeeling, were wild, red at the rims, like a man who hadn't slept since the night I disappeared. "I'm in love with you, Rashika," he rasped. Madly. Stupidly. Dangerously. And I know you feel it too. Then he leaned closer, breath warm against my frozen cheek. "And I know exactly who your father was." The world cracked open beneath me. I was 24, broke, and carrying a secret that could destroy empires. My name is Rashika Sharma, and for the last 3 years I had been hiding in plain sight as Rashi Mehta, junior graphic designer at Cold Enterprises, the very empire built on the ruins of my family. Let me take you back to the night everything began. 3 months earlier. Mumbai's December rain lashed against the windows of the 23rd floor studio I shared with 2 other girls. My phone buzzed at 2:17 a.m., a calendar reminder I could never delete. 10 years since Appa went missing. I curled into a ball on the thin mattress and let the tears come. 10 years since the police closed the file on Vikram Sharma, investigative journalist, labeled presumed suicide. 10 years since our bungalow in Juhu was auctioned off to pay debts we never knew existed. 10 years since Mom dissolved into pills and silence, and I learned that truth has a price most people can't afford. I wiped my face, opened my laptop, and did what I always did on this night, logged into the anonymous drive where Appa had hidden his last investigation. File name, Project Aurora. Password, Rashika 1999. The folder contained scanned notebooks, audio clips, bank statements. All pointing to one man. Alexander Cold. The 32-year-old billionaire who owned half the skyline outside my window. The man the world called ruthless, brilliant, untouchable. Appa's final note, dated 3 days before he vanished, read: "If anything happens to me, tell my daughter the Cold family didn't just ruin us. They killed us." I was 17 when I first read those words. 17 when I swore I would finish what Appa started. I changed my surname, learned design, got hired at Cold Enterprises under a fake backstory, and waited. For 3 years I was invisible. Quiet. Perfect employee. Until the night of the annual gala. That night. The ballroom glittered like a frozen palace. I wore a second-hand black sari I'd altered myself, hair twisted into a low knot, the only jewelry a thin gold chain, Appa's last gift. I was supposed to photograph the event for the internal magazine. Instead I stood frozen near the champagne table, watching him. Alexander Cold. He moved through the crowd like a shark through water, tall, black tuxedo sharp enough to cut glass, jaw carved from the same ice as his name. Women stared. Men straightened. And then his eyes found mine. I should have looked away. I didn't. He crossed the room in 12 strides. People parted without realizing why. "You're new," he said. Not a question. Rashi Mehta. Design team. My voice didn't shake. I was proud of that. He tilted his head, studying me the way one studies a puzzle with a missing piece. "Dance with me." It wasn't a request. I wanted to say no. Every cell in my body screamed danger. But Appa's voice whispered in my head, "Get close enough to bite." So I placed my hand in his. The orchestra played something slow and aching. His palm settled at the small of my back, warm, possessive. "You're trembling," he murmured against my ear. "Cold hands," I lied. He smiled, small and sharp. "We'll fix that." That was the first night he looked at me like I was the only person in the room. The first night I realized revenge might cost more than I thought. The weeks that followed. He found excuses to keep me late. Need your eyes on the new campaign. He remembered how I took my chai, strong, less sugar, pinch of elaichi. He sent a driver when it rained because good designers shouldn't catch pneumonia. He never touched me beyond a brush of fingers, a hand at my elbow. But every look felt like a brand. I hated how my pulse raced when the elevator dinged at 7 p.m. and he was waiting. I hated how I started dreaming of his voice. And I hated myself most for the folder I kept adding to on my laptop, screenshots, overheard conversations, access codes I'd stolen one by one. Proof that Cold Enterprises had paid off half the police force the year Appa disappeared. Proof that Alexander's father, Victor Cold, had personally signed the order that buried the investigation. I was so close. Then came the night everything shattered. January 14th. I stayed late in the office, alone on the 48th floor. The building was empty, city lights blinking below like fallen stars. I finally cracked the last encrypted drive. Inside, a video file dated 10 years ago. Grainy night vision. A warehouse by the docks. Appa on his knees, hands tied. Victor Cold standing over him, face cold as death. You should have stopped digging, Vikram. A gunshot. I screamed into the silence. I didn't hear the elevator arrive. Didn't expect to find you here, Miss Mehta. Alexander's voice. Calm. Too calm. He stood in the doorway, coat unbuttoned, snowflakes melting in his hair. In his hand, a USB drive. My USB drive. The one I thought I'd hidden perfectly inside the false bottom of my drawer. I lunged for it. He lifted it out of reach. 6'3" against 5'4" never felt so unfair. Looking for this? He asked softly. Give it back. No. He stepped closer. I backed into the desk. You've been lying to me for 3 years, Rashika Sharma. My real name in his mouth sounded like a prayer and a curse. How long have you known? My voice cracked. Since the first week. He laughed, bitter. You think I don't run background checks on every person who steps into my building? Your forged documents were good. Not perfect. Then why? Why did I let you stay? His eyes searched mine. Because the second I saw your photograph, I knew you. Not your name. You. The way you bite your lip when you're nervous. The way you look at old buildings like they're telling you secrets. I've been dreaming of you since I was 19, Rashika. I just didn't know your name yet. I laughed, harsh, broken. You expect me to believe the man whose father murdered mine is in love with me? Pain flashed across his face so raw I almost believed it. I didn't know, he whispered. Not until 6 months ago. My father was dying. He confessed everything on his last night. Told me Vikram Sharma had a daughter. Showed me your picture, 17 years old, standing at his funeral. Said if you ever came for us, I should, his voice fractured. I should finish what he started. I couldn't breathe. But I couldn't. He stepped closer. Because it was you. The girl I'd been waiting for my whole damn life. And I hated him. I hated myself. So I kept you close, hoping, praying, you'd never find out. Tears burned my eyes. I just watched the video, Alexander. Your father shot mine in the head. I know. His voice broke completely. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to make it right. Starting tonight. He dropped to his knees in front of me. Actually knelt on the marble floor of his own empire. Take it all, he said, holding out the USB. Expose me. Destroy everything I am. I deserve it. But please, his hands shook. Please don't leave again. I can't breathe without you. I stared at the man the world called heartless, on his knees, tears cutting tracks through the snow on his lashes. And something inside me shattered. The truth. Over the next hours, words poured out of us like blood from an old wound. He told me how his father had beaten him for showing weakness. How he'd built the cold empire harder, colder, to prove he was worthy. How the first time he saw me laugh, at a stupid meme on my phone, he felt warmth for the first time in 20 years. I told him how I used to sleep with Appa's old press badge under my pillow. How I practiced saying, Rashika, in the mirror until I stopped flinching. How every time he looked at me like I was precious, I hated myself for wanting it to be real. At 5 a.m., the city waking below us, he made a call. Release everything, he told his lawyer. The warehouse footage. The bribes. All of it. Pin it on Victor Cold and anyone still alive who took the money. You'll go to prison, I whispered. Then I'll go to prison. He cupped my face. But your father's name will be clean. And you'll be free. Freedom. The word tasted like ash. Because somewhere between the lies and the grief and the impossible love, I had stopped wanting him destroyed. I wanted him healed. I wanted us healed. The choice. 2 weeks later. The headlines screamed. Cold Empire crumbles as billionaire confesses father's sins. Vikram Sharma vindicated after 10 years. Alexander Cold missing, feared suicide. They thought he ran. They were wrong. He was on a train to Kochi with me, wearing a faded kurta I bought from a roadside stall, beard growing in patchy because he'd never let it grow before. No bodyguards. No credit cards. Just 2 backpacks and the weight of 10 years lifting, slowly, like morning mist. We stood on Marine Drive at sunset, my mother's ashes finally scattered where Appa used to take me for cutting chai. Alexander, Sander now, because Alexander belonged to a man who no longer existed, held my hand so tightly I felt his pulse. I have nothing left to give you, he said quietly. No money. No name. Just me. I looked at the boy who had knelt for me. Who had burned his kingdom to give me justice. You're enough, I whispered. He cried then. Silently. Shoulders shaking against the sea breeze. And I held him like I had wanted someone to hold me for 10 long years. Epilogue, 1 year later. We run a small school now, on the outskirts of Fort Kochi, 30 children who lost parents to fishing accidents, debt, despair. We teach them to read, to dream, to ask dangerous questions. Sander teaches maths in Malayalam he learned from YouTube at night when he thinks I'm asleep. I teach art, and every year on Appa's death anniversary, we light 31 lamps, one for every year he lived, and tell the children that truth is heavier than gold, but it makes you fly. Sometimes tourists recognize the face that once graced Forbes covers. They whisper. We smile and offer them coconut water. At night, when the children sleep, he pulls me onto the terrace. Still madly in love with you, Mrs. Rashika, whoever we are today, he murmurs against my neck. I laugh, because we still haven't decided what surname to keep. Maybe we'll make a new one. And I'm still stupidly, dangerously in love with you, Mr. Cold who isn't. He kisses me under a sky full of stars that no longer feel cold. This is not a fairy tale. It's a story about what happens when the person you were sent to destroy becomes the one who saves you. And sometimes, love isn't the opposite of hate. Sometimes love is the only way to finish the war. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that even the coldest hearts can choose warmth, that justice and love can walk hand in hand, then please hit that like button, leave a comment telling me which part broke your heart the most, and subscribe for more stories that prove love always finds a way. Because you deserve love that kneels. You deserve love that burns empires for you. And I'll keep telling these stories until every single one of you believes it. See you in the next one. Rashika and Sander. Still writing our ending, one healed day at a time.